It is head-to-head showdown time once again on Engine Masters. This time, it is Dart versus Brodix versus Profiler versus Edelbrock in who makes the best intake manifold for a big inch, big power, big block shed. It's my happy day. You know why? Because it's Big Block Chevy Day, and specifically 598 cubic inches of Big Block Chevy Day. What we got going on here is a Blueprint Engines short block that you can buy complete, and it is awesome because you can put together a package just like this one. And that means we've got a Dart Pro 1 aluminum head on it with a 365cc intake runner. We have a Crane solid roller camshaft, not that big. The specs are 276 degrees at 50 on the intake, 282 on the exhaust. And this thing has about 10 3/4 to 1 compression. It makes about 850 horsepower on 91 octane pump gas. So this is the type of combination that Brule has been seeing come across the dyno a bunch these days. But the question everybody has is, what is the best single 4-barrel intake for huge power? And that is what we're gonna find out today. The first thing that we're gonna do is run it with the Dart single plane that is sort of matched to these cylinder heads. And then we're gonna do a ruthless head-to-head shootout between Dart, Edelbrock, Profiler, and Brodix. So we're gonna roll this thing and hook it up on the dyno. I'm gonna have Brule talk to you about some of the instrumentation that we're gonna do here so that we can narrow in on the reasons why each manifold is best. So let's get that going, man. We're gonna make some power today.
Two of the things that we really want to pay attention to during our intake manifold test is airflow, which we're measuring with the air hat, and cylinder-to-cylinder distribution. We have the dyno outfitted with individual O2 meters, one for every cylinder. So between airflow and cylinder-to-cylinder distribution, we're going to be able to kind of better analyze the power potential of the intake. Ultimately, it's going to be torque and horsepower, but this is going to help us know why.
All right, here we go for the test that Brule made me do. He's been dying for this one.
He just wanted to know.
Yeah, he had to know.
I need more big block info.
I know. Well, I want to know too.
This is a question that gets asked a lot more than you might see. I mean, phone calls and guys in here with big blocks. It's a question that's asked a lot.
Which is literally, what's the best out of the box single 4-barrel intake for my 565, 582,
Yeah.
598?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're gonna find out, starting out with the Dart, right? You have it all tuned up?
Yep. Well, I think I do.
Well, we'll find
We'll
out.
find out. Everything will go wrong now. Here's our final numbers on our Dart single plane intake. Peak numbers, 833.7 horsepower, 6,300 RPM. The torque, 765.2 pound-feet at 5,300. The average horsepower is 777.5, and the average torque, 732.9. And we won't really know what any of that means until we get another one of these manifolds
Something else
on
to compare it to.
But let's look at the air-fuel ratio, cylinder to cylinder.
Well,
you can definitely see your
5 to 14.5 the spread. That's a lot.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Huh. That's a real eye-opener, though, how different it is. Yeah, 14 to 1 in middle cylinders, 10 to 1 on one of the outer cylinders.
Ultimately, in a perfect world, what we're trying to do is tune 8 one-cylinder engines.
Right.
You know, whether it's with fuel or whether it's with cam timing. You know, a lot of the late model stuff's got variable cam timing, and they're doing that with runner links and cam timing. With these types of engines, you know, you can only do so much with them, but that's ideally what you're trying to do, is get the most out of every cylinder in the engine.
It also shows me how many years we've gotten away with what we didn't know.
Well, see, the more equipment you buy and the more information you have, the scarier it gets.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Next manifold. So there's our baseline. Pretty stout, especially when you consider that we did it with this manifold, the Dart, which is arguably the least aggressive intake manifold that we've got here. Why do I say that? Well, you can see that it's got the lowest carburetor flange. That means it's got the least plenum volume, And it's just designed for maybe a 540 or a 565 big block, maybe not the full Monty 598, but the rest of these intakes are full race. Make no bones about it. So here's what we got. A Profiler Sniper intake manifold, an Edelbrock Super Victor 2, and the Brodix, which doesn't have a catchy name, it's just a Brodix. But it does have a turtle cast in, which is cool, we'll get to that. So the thing that makes all of these manifolds similar is that they are all single planes. They all are flanged for a 4500 carburetor or a Holley Dominator, and they're all out. These are not designed for your wimpy 454. These are for big RPM or big displacement and above, I'd say, 750 to 800 horsepower, which we know we're gonna do with our 598. So let's look at some of the differences now between these things. On the Dart, once again, it is the shortest one, and it's the only one that has what I call a clover leaf here on the carburetor opening. The rest of them have a full open square. There's also a very curious pattern in the way that they have designed the runner walls and how they come up and open up in the plenum right below the butterfly. It's kind of an interesting deal. The rest of these are all the way open. As a matter of fact, the Sniper, as you can see here, you look straight down in this manifold, and the walls do not impinge right below the Venturi at all. As we look at each one of these, also look at the differences that each manufacturer has designed into the plenum floor. Some of them slope away in different ways, which can affect performance. Now we move over here to the Edelbrock Super Victor 2, and you can see this is the first manifold with a square opening that has a divider wall between the runners that actually impinges into the plenum directly underneath the carburetor. That gets even more interesting as we move here to the Brodix unit, which does a little bit of the same thing with the walls, but there's that turtle that I mentioned. Now, the turtle is something that I guess it's a gag, it's what we call it. It came out in the 80s as actually separate pieces that you could glue into your manifold. This is cast in. It is basically just a bump there with some grooves in it that are designed to direct the airflow and air fuel mixture into each cylinder. The other thing that's going to be different about each one of these is the general shape of the runner that the manufacturers designed and the design of the actual port opening and whether it is CNC port matched or not. Now we've set all of these onto our Dart 365 cylinder heads, and I can tell you that the Dart intake is the one of these manifolds where the manifold opening is actually just a little bit smaller than the port in the cylinder head. Now that's okay. You don't want to go the other way. You don't want your manifold being bigger than the port on your cylinder head or you've got a big airflow problem. But that's not an issue here. Port matching typically doesn't do quite as much as you think that it does. However, I must point out that the Profiler is CNC port matched. The Edelbrock is not. Now, on the regular Super Victor intake manifold, it is critical that you port match it. They actually come designed for that with a bump around there that makes the port smaller. But on this Super Victor, it does not have that design, and it matches the port pretty well. And then when we go into the Brodix, it is once again port matched specifically for that Dart head. When you buy this Brodix manifold, it actually says that it is designed for a Dart 335 head, but the port mouth is the same. So that's what we got going on with these intake manifolds. Now we got to find out the only thing you really care about, which is how much peak and average power do these things make. We're going to find out kicking it off with the Profiler Sniper, then we'll move on to the Edelbrock and close it out with the Brodix. All right, we're ready to go now with the Profiler Sniper manifold, and I have to have this on record. We were out there sitting on the sofa, and I said to Dolchek, oh yeah, the Profiler's probably gonna bump this thing over 850, and he gave me one of the Dulcich.
I said the same
I
thing,
don't know.
but we had two completely separate reasons for believing that that one might be the winner.
You just trust the guy who built this manifold.
I know that the other manifolds were around when the guy that built this one had something to compare it to. So when Darren Morgan did this thing, I figure it's got a pretty good chance.
I just eyeballed it and said it's better.
Well, we'll find out who's the hero and who's the chump.
The
once
calibrated
again.
eyeball.
That's it. Ready?
Yeah.
wasn't even looking at the horsepower.
Man, the distribution on that thing was way better.
Yeah.
It made a lot more power. Whoa! 860 horsepower, 775 pound-feet. Way better than that other manifold, but we're gonna have to go out there and rejet this thing and come up with a final number. It's gonna make even more power than this once we lean it out. At peak, we're seeing 60 more CFM of airflow with this manifold than the earlier one. Now, to be completely fair, that Dart manifold is much shorter. Yeah. It's like a different category of manifold. Yeah. It's for smaller engines. I thought it only fair to point out that it's not that the Dart is garbage, it's that it's not as good on this engine.
Yeah, different category. Let's take 4 jets out of the secondary and see what it does.
Okay.
You know, just that's a quickie, and it'll tell us if there's any potential there.
Yep. Okay. So these guys are gonna run out there and lean it out just a little bit, and we'll run it again and find out if we can make even more power with the Profiler Sniper.
What we're gonna do here is just change the jets and the secondaries now. Probably, if we're tuning it to the razor's edge, we'd go front and back, but we're just looking for a trend and getting it in the ballpark, and it's already probably very close to max power jetting anyway.
So here's our final numbers on the Profiler Sniper intake manifold. 864.8 horsepower, 777.2 pound-feet of torque. The average power between 4,500 and 6,700 RPM is now 796 horsepower and 749.4 pound-feet of torque. Super Victor 2 coming up next.
Let's do it.
All the intake manifolds that we're testing are being utilized on top of a Dart 365cc intake runner Pro 1-cylinder head. We checked beforehand to make sure that there was no overlap in the intake where the intake was actually larger than the cylinder head. That causes an interruption in airflow. So if you have a mismatch of some sort, it's at least better to have the intake a touch smaller, and that's where we are on all of these manifolds. I've seen port matching make as much as 15 or 16 horsepower difference just going in 3/4 or an inch. I've also seen it make no difference when somebody spent 10 or 12 hours working on it. So you never know, but it's always best to play it safe and make sure the intake is just a touch smaller than the cylinder head.
Now we're ready to go with the Edelbrock Super Victor 2. This is very interesting so far. Here are numbers with the Edelbrock Super Victor 2 intake manifold. Peak horsepower, 839.6 at 6,500 RPM. Looking at torque, 757.5 pound-feet at 5,100. Now the averages are where it gets really interesting. Our average horsepower with the Edelbrock, 774.4, average torque, 729.3. Interestingly, both of those average numbers are lower than the shorter Dart intake manifold. And of course, all of the numbers are lower than the Profile, which is our current champ. I mean, currently at peak, this thing is 25 horsepower down from the Profiler. We're not tuning that back into it with a jet.
And you know, is it fair? I think we're all surprised by that. I mean, I really
completely
thought
surprised
this thing was going to be.
But look at the airflow story.
Which would you like me to compare it to first?
The Profiler. That's our
Okay,
leader.
Well, that's going to be kind of easy to know what happened there.
Yeah, duh.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah. So obviously what's happening here is that the Edelbrock is not flowing as much air as our current leader, the Profiler. What do you think?
Well, I don't know about, this is an 850 horsepower motor. What happens when you run it on a 1,000 horsepower engine? I mean, is it going to continue to...
It doesn't make the manifold better that it has a greater airflow demand.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe the velocity gets more in the zone and it just works better.
We're already at a point, a power level, where the airflow capability of the manifold is a restriction. And so adding more power, it's not going to make it less of a restriction.
Well, you guys are presenting a convincing argument.
Well, you know, if we've got a 496 at 7,200 making 850, or this thing at 6,300 making 850, it's 850
Well, that's a wash.
horsepower.
Same-
so
same
Essentially the same mass air.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, that's the out-of-the-box number with that. So the last one we got is the Brodix with the cast-in little turtle in the plenum.
I saw the turtle. I like the turtle.
I think let's name it.
Turdy?
All right, we're gonna go install the Brodix manifold now. This turtle thing that we're talking about is in the plenum of the intake manifold, there's actually a cast-in bump with a bunch of ridges and stuff on it, and it looks like a turtle shell, except for it's kind of a different shape. And those things came out, I remember them in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they had them where you could bond them into the bottom of the intake manifold. I always thought they were a complete gimmick, but they're a like built-in cast-in part of this intake manifold, and
Yeah.
you're calling it turdy.
Well, it's designed to direct flow, basically, and
Yeah.
fuel and stuff that's on the
Fuel
bottom of the
There's
manifold.
actually some grooves in it to help
Yeah.
direct some things
It's
off
like
the
the
floor
old-
of the manifold.
It's like the old Vanke popsicle stick or the Dick Landy popsicle stick in the intake manifold to direct stuff. Anyway, let's fire it up and run the Brodix intake manifold. Long live
Yeah.
Turdy the Turtle! Wow, that thing is a beast!
It is.
I cannot believe we're finding this much difference in these intake manifolds.
Yeah, it is surprising for sure.
This is awesome. I thought that the Profiler was the kill, but the Brodix just made 875.8 horsepower and 782.2 pound-feet of torque. And looking at the averages, 802.6 horsepower on average. The average torque, 755.4. I mean, on average, for the worst manifold here to make 729 and the best one to make 755,
That's a different engine at that
is
point.
huge.
Wow.
Yeah, big difference.
So why did the Brodix run so good though? That's what we need to know.
Okay, let's look at some data.
So here's a comparison of the Brodix in black and the Profiler Sniper intake in red. You can see the Brodix is just better everywhere.
Let's take a look at temperatures. I just want to verify.
Now we're confirming our data to make sure that we had our oil and water temperatures in a fair range so that we didn't give an advantage to the Brodix, because this is a crazy improvement. What's our difference in oil temp there? From 198 to 206?
At the top, yeah, and that was,
That favors the Profiler, though.
Yeah, the Profiler had
hot.
hotter oil, but it also had hotter coolant, so.
Okay, so let's look at airflow.
Wow.
Same, more or less.
The Profiler actually moves just a tiny, tiny speck more air, so how does it make more power if it's not moving more air? Where's the efficiency coming from? Turdy? Is it turdy?
Cylinder to cylinder, airspeed. Because it's moving the same amount doesn't mean it's moving the same speed.
Right?
So it could be.
Yeah, velocity in the intake
Power comes from
manifold.
two places, either more airflow or better efficiency. So it's obviously slightly more efficient.
Now we're looking at the air-fuel ratio cylinder to cylinder on the two manifolds. The Profiler's in red and the Brodix is in black, and yeah, it does have a closer range.
A little
than the
closer grouping. I
Profiler.
mean, this is good, but this is just a touch better. So
Tiny
that could
bit.
be part of it.
It's using the same amount of fuel and the same amount of air, and it's making another 11 horsepower. I'm
It's amazing
shocked.
is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
It's kind of cool to see that there actually is a difference.
It's a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Because you look at all these big manifolds, some tall, some short. I mean, to actually now be able to see that there are applications and there's differences, it makes me want to test more.
I know. Yeah.
It never ends, Steve-O.
I know. And I love Chevrolets and I love big blocks.
I know, look at the
so,
He's just so happy.
Wow, I know.
That's the only reason we did this
He
episode.
was absolutely glowing when
I
he
know.
was
I
just
know,
telling
this,
me.
this is the most fun, is finding out stuff. Because now when that guy calls and says, what manifold should I use? I've actually got an answer.
Oh, I know. All right, this is cool. Let's go wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you.
Dude, I don't think I've ever done a shootout of intake manifolds this similar and seen a difference of 36 horsepower from best to worst.
No, I mean, that was huge. And I was kind of hoping to see that because guys are going to be making that purchase decision, and that's going to really help out a lot.
But I gotta tell you, I put a hint of the results on my social media, and what do you think's like the first comment right out of the gate?
Oh, the test is totally invalid because you got a cam for each one of those different intake manifolds.
I wasn't that specific, but it was definitely, oh, well, to be fair, each of these intakes will perform differently with a different cam. And
Probably.
let's just go ahead and address that. I would say that would be true if we were talking a swing of like maybe 50 degrees intake duration on the cam. Sure, if this thing only ran to 5,000 RPM, it wouldn't have had the same results. But that is the key of what we see all the time when we do this type of thing, is running a big engine like this puts a tax on the intake manifold and shows a bigger change.
And maybe a 1,200 horsepower motor would have an even bigger draw and you'd see a bigger spread between them.
Exactly. And conversely, if you were to do the same thing on, let's say, a bone stock 454, it wouldn't be drawing as much air through the intake, and so the difference between all of these would be much less. So
Sure.
This is kind of the sweet spot, and really what it makes me want to do is build like a 1,200 horsepower naturally aspirated big block.
Oh, let's do it someday.
Because 875 on pump gas, not good enough. And you know, if I actually pull that off, you will see it on a future episode of Engine Masters. He's getting pretty good at this. You're gonna take that Brodix home and rub up against
I
it.
am. I'm going to keep it. You don't have it anymore.
Wait, what?
That's
That was
a West
600
Tech
bucks.
manifold.
No.
And well worth the money.
Pay up. No, it's cash. No, bro love, cash.
What we're gonna do here is just change the jets into secondaries now.
Did you like the way that he said we?
I'm holding the secondary accelerator pump lever arm up.
Because it's a very complicated job.
Yeah, and I don't have that much experience with the jet change yet.
Now you do it on thermoquads.
Yeah. If it's a thermoquad, then I take over.